So sorry, my voice is quite low, so if I start to drift away, please remind me. So is religion for African people? When I came to consider this question, to me it boiled down to, because we were given quite a wide brief, but when I looked at it, to me it came down to questions of authenticity and truth. I was considering whether it impacts my Africanness, or indeed my humanity, to follow a religion. And secondly, is there any truth in it? When you put dogma to one side, do we lose anything if we put it to one side? So I'm here to argue, unsurprisingly, yes. Religion is for African people. But to explain my vantage point, I'm coming as an African woman who was not raised in the church, but who became a Christian later in my teens, but also someone who works in the field of human rights. Despite our name, CSW actually represents the right to the freedom of religion or belief, the human right enshrined in the Universal Declaration. So, although I'm a Christian, I actually believe in the right of people to believe what they want. And I believe that is a God-given innate dignity, but obviously as a human rights practitioner, I'd say it's in the international laws and statutes which have been developed. The heart of my argument is really quite modest, not to throw the proverbial baby out with the bathwater, because wherever humans are involved, there are flaws.
True.
And the search of all people for purpose and meaning is universal. So I actually wrote this bit before I'd come here, but the first time I encountered Black Jesus was in the south of France, in a small village in the Basque country, in a tiny local church. The Basque region is involved in, wanting to break away from the main area of France. And I was surprised to find in this little village, as I rocked through as a backpacker, they were like, "Oh yes, you like Jesus?" I was like, And they took me to this little church. And I was quite moved, actually. African missionaries had brought that image there and put it in this little church. The first time I encountered Chinese Jesus was standing in a church in Beijing, looking at the paintings on the wall, and I was like, yeah, he looks Chinese. I guess what I'm trying to say is, in a light-hearted way, not only is the search for purpose and meaning universal, but also we do have a tend to make things in our own image. It's a matter of, I will speak mainly about Christianity because that's what I know best. But certainly through my work, the church around the world, and in fact, religious sites, especially in authoritarian regimes, tend to be a site of resistance, tend to be the only place where people can gather to meet freely, to talk about freedom and to talk about truth. And that's not just Christianity, but mosques as well, and other religious places. In China, and I know I'm going quite global here, and I will come back home, but in China, arguably the place where Christianity is growing the fastest in the world, Christians are involved in the biggest social outreach, earthquake relief, education. I suppose what I'm trying to say is, it comes down to the people involved. To paraphrase someone wise whose name I cannot recall, church is a hospital for sinners, not a hotel for saints. And one of the biggest problems with any religion is its followers, and I include myself in that. As a woman, as a black woman, as a feminist black African woman who at 34 years old is unmarried, I'm considered transgressive in my culture. So I am quite wary of purity tests for being African. And I fully attest to the flaws of my church. I can attest to the flaws of the church in my own life on women's rights and that of other minorities. And that's even before you talk about other religions and the other things that have done. Basically what I'm saying is the catalogue of human depravity is vast. We don't need religion as an excuse.
Come on.
And the church, and I'm not excluding other religions in this, but the church in particular has brought much to the world. People inspired by their faith, not just Christianity, but other faiths have done amazing things. I think it's paternalistic to deny Africans the opportunity to think for ourselves when it comes to interpreting our religions, because ultimately, where humans touch things, they are flawed. But we have to use our common sense and decide what we're going to do. I stand here wearing mixed fibers.
4 minutes.
And I can tell you I've sinned many times today. Yeah, so I'm just saying, there but for the grace of God go out. I'm a proud African, and just as there is as many expressions of blackness as there are black people, by which I mean we cannot police it, nor can we police Africanness. That I follow a religion that started in the Middle East does not make my expression of faith any less African. Like the Chinese, like many other civilizations, we have a unique and proud history. But we're also human, no lesser or greater than anyone else, and everyone must be free to be as authentic as they can be. Which is why I would say that, I wouldn't stop anyone from believing in traditional religions or African spirituality, but to me it's not either or. In fact, because I was born in Malawi but raised in Zimbabwe, a lot of my friends who are doctors say one of the first questions you ask when someone comes through the door of a hospital, regardless of what they put on their form, is what traditional medicines have you taken? We act as if these things are binary, but in reality, in practice, we blur the lines a lot because we're human. And I think compassion would go a long way. So back to my first two questions. The issue of authenticity. I don't think following a religion impacts your humanity unless you choose to ignore it. Nor does it impact your Africanness like any other aspect of your identity would. I don't know how much you know about Malawi, but the gay issue is quite a big deal there. And what gets reported a lot is the homophobia, which absolutely is a problem. What doesn't get reported is for instance, religious leaders that have come together to press for rights for that minority in my country. Now, there are also religious leaders on the other side who are part of the problem. What can I say? We're human. But the issue is one of truth. Is there a nugget in truth there? As a Christian, hey, I'm biased. I'm going to tell you yes, obviously. But I think it's a question for everyone to decide for themselves. And the crucial thing I would say is, we should give people the choice. I think it's to rule it out and to imply that we cannot think for ourselves or look at an ancient book that was written hundreds of years ago and think that just maybe we need to update it for 2016, I think is a bit ridiculous. That horrors are committed in the name of religion, I can't argue with that. But last I checked, we didn't need religion to make those excuses. And in terms of sites where people can gather, I know in America, in the civil rights movement, churches were a key part where people met to gather. In part, again, because I think they were motivated by faith, but in part as well because it was a place where you could meet. Little known fact, the attack in Charleston was not the only attack on a black church in America lately. It has been ongoing before and since the election. Why? Why do they go there? Because they know that historically it's where the black community has met. Now, as a Christian, I believe there's some truth in there that animates people to press for their rights. But, I think just in general, it would be safe to say that it's a place where people can gather safely. Now, in the modern, in these days, we'll meet in many different places, but I think that the church, other religions still have a place to play. So, in terms of truth, you have to seek it for yourself. But I believe you should be given the choice, which is why I do think religion is for African people.